Ohai. Kenya, the state in East Africa, is the former colony of Great Britain. It gained independence on December 12, 1963. Enters the British Commonwealth of Nations. Today the country is one of the most dynamically developing among the countries of East Africa. Capital, Nairobi. Monetary unit, Kenyan shilling. The country is called in honor of Mount Kenya, which in language of Kikuyu is called Kirinyaga. Mountain, or the White Mountain. Kenya is in the territory which, according to many scientists, is the ancestral home of mankind. There, on east coast of Lake Rudolph, instruments of labor and remains of ancestors of the people living presumably about 3 million years ago in Lemekvi are found. Much later the territory of Kenya was populated with people, relatives on the lines to the current Ethiopian race. Also there lived tribes of Khoisanski. Nowadays South African. Racial type is later Negroid Bantuzichni tribes, ancestors modern, Swahili and Amidakenda came from the west. In the 7th-8th centuries on the coast of Kenya shopping centers of Swahili began to be formed. Tulam, Bikunt, Patye. Malindi, Mombasa, etc. They were engaged in intermediary trade between the internal regions of Africa with India and Arabia. From Africa took out iron, gold, ivory, a horn of a rhinoceros, slaves, and imported metal weapon, craft products, fabrics. In 1498 to the coast of Kenya the ships of the Portuguese expedition under command of Vasco da Gama, who was looking for a seaway to India, came. At the beginning of the 16th century Portuguese occupied many seaports on the coast of Kenya to use them as intermediate points on the way to India. However, in the middle of the 17th century governors of the Sultanate of Oman began to expel Portuguese from Kenya. By 1699 the Omani Imam Sultan Ibn Said finally took control of Mombasa and expelled Portuguese from all coast. Governors of Oman put in power the deputies from the locals applying for the Arab origin. By the beginning of the 19th century the slave trade became the basis of the economy of Kenya. One of the main ways of the Arab slave traders in East Africa lay from Mombasa to the African state of Vanga. At the beginning of the 19th century in Mombasa there were separatist tendencies. The Sualiski dynasty of Morui strove for independence of sultans of Zanzibar and to establishment of the dominion over all coast of East Africa. In 1824 Morui accepted the British protectorate over Mombasa. However, it didn't help them. In 1828 the Sultan of Zanzibar sent a fleet to Mombasa and crushed troops of Morui. War continued till 1837, having terminated in a victory of the Sultan of Zanzibar. All members of the family of Morui were sent as slaves to Oman. Since 1846 in Kenya Christian missionaries, at first on the coast, and then and in the central regions appeared. From 1878 years East Africa became object of rivalry between the European powers, first of all to Britain and Germany. In 1886 they concluded the agreement on the partition of East Africa, under which the territory of present Kenya fell within the British sphere of influence. In 1890, Britain and Germany signed the so-called Helgoland Contract, under which British gave to Germany the island of Helgoland at its northern coast, recognized the rights of Germany for Tanganyika, the mainland of modern Tanzania, and in exchange acquired the rights for Kenya and Zanzibar. Since 1890, British began to develop intensively fertile lands in the internal regions of Kenya, founding White Settlement Colony. In 1897-1901, the railroad and the communication line from Mombasa to Lake Victoria was constructed. English settlers created large-scale plantation enterprises, including for production of export cultures, tea, coffee, sisal. The British created the enterprises for processing of agricultural products, production of consumer goods, infrastructure, and so forth. At the beginning of the 20th century, immigration of British to Kenya became more active. In 1902, in the administrative center of the East African Protectorate, Nairobi, the British settlers created the first public organization, Association of Colonists. In 1906, at the British governor, two councils, executive and legislative, which only white entered, were created. In 1907, by the order of the British governor in Kenya, the slaveholding, which was traditionally practicing in local African tribes, was forbidden. Since the 20th century, Islam began to extend to the coast of Kenya. In the years of World War I, the British authorities mobilized in army about 200,000 Kenyans, generally as porters of military freights, however several thousands local. As a part of the royal case of the African shooters, were indirectly involved in fighting mines the German troops in East Africa. Since 1927, the Legislative Council included the elected representatives of Arabs and Asians, generally from the Southern Asia. Kenyans received the first seat in the Legislative Council only in 1944, then the Association of Africans of Kenya. Since 1946, the Union of Africans of Kenya, SAKI, the country's first Massachusetts political organization which headed liberating fight, was created. The program of SAKI contained the following main requirements: transfer of the political power to Africans, guarantee of the rights of all racial minorities and elimination of racial discrimination, satisfaction of need of Africans for the earth, free activity of labor unions, immediate elections. In 1949, the East African Congress of Labor Unions, ECLU, which for the first time united black workers and Indian workers, was created. The strike movement amplified. In May 1950, in response to arrest of heads of VAC in Nairobi, the general strike took place. In October 1952, in Kenya, the revolt of Momo broke out. In this regard, in the country, state of emergency was imposed. The colonial authorities, 86 leaders of SAKI, including the chairman of SAKI, since 1947, to Jomo Kenyatta, arrested on false charge of a management of Momo terrorist organization. Kenyatta and 5 other heads of SAKI in April 1953 were sentenced to 7 years of imprisonment everyone. In June of SAKI it was forbidden. In 1959 it became clear that for charge and condemnation of Kenyatta and other leaders of SAKI, the police bribed witnesses. In a revolt of Momo participated in the basic tribes of Kikuyu, Embu, Emeasure. By some estimates, the guerrilla army reached 30 or even 50,000 fighters. This army was headed by 32-year-old Dedan Vachiri Kimati from the tribe of Kikwu, who had experience of service in the British Army. The guerrillas of Momo, armed with small arms and also copies, onions and knives, attacked local police stations, killed the blacks working for the British, plundered and burned farms of the English settlers. Even according to official figures to 1955, more than 11,000 Africans were killed, more than 60,000 were in concentration camps. Escaping from retaliatory expeditions, the population ran to mountains and created guerrilla groups. Remote forests in Mounts Kenya and Aberda became the main centers of resistance. In 1956, guerrillas of Momo were beaten, most of their commanders is killed or taken prisoner, including the commander-in-chief Kimati, who was executed. In the same 1956, Africans were granted limited electoral rights. On January 12, 1960, the colonial authorities, seeking to enter calm, repealed state of emergency and allowed creation of the African political parties. In March 1961 elections, on the basis of the Constitution which came into force in February 1961, in the Legislative Council which brought the majority created in 1960 to the National Union of Africans of Kenya, TUKAN, 23 places, and the Democratic Union of Africans of Kenya, to the Ring Road, 16 places, were held. Though both parties supported granting of independence, between them there were considerable disagreements, first of all concerning state system of the country after declaration of independence. TUKAN enjoyed support of two largest ethnic groups of the population, Kikwu and Luo, played for the unitary state and to the Ring Road. I expressed the interests of the coastal people and the few cattle breeding population of uplands for federal. After elections, figures to the Ring Road, having violated the arrangement about Kana on refusal of formation of the government before Kenyatta's release, entered into the new government. In August 1961, under the pressure of Massachusetts actions of Kenyatta, it was released. With 1959, after the termination of term of imprisonment, he was in exile in the north of the country. And at the end of October I held the chairman's post to TUKAN. In April 1962 in London, the conference considering the new draft constitution took place. During work of a conference and the followed negotiations, decisions on K.'s division into 7 provinces with considerable autonomy of provincial authorities were made. In May 1963, on the basis of the new constitution, elections to the National Assembly which brought a victory of party TUKAN were held. The party to the Ring Road got beaten. In November 1964 it was declared her self-dissolution. On June 1, 1963 the country received internal self-government. Jomo Kenyatta became the Prime Minister, the first in the history of Kenya. At the conference which took place in London in September-October 1963, on insistence of delegation, I will sink into the constitution the changes which expanded powers of the central government were made. Liberating fight of Kenyans forced the government of Great Britain to agree to granting of independence. In December 1963 Kenya became the independent state, and in December 1964 is proclaimed the republic. The veteran of fight for independence 72-year-old Jomo Kenyatta in May 1963 put forward the program of creation of the African Democratic Socialist Kenya, became the first governor of Kenya. Africanization, that is replacement not black from the sphere of management and economy, was the main point of the program. In the sphere of agriculture, the policy of creation of collective farms of blacks on the land selected at white was pursued. On December 12, 1964, Kenya was announced by the Republic. Prerogatives of local government were cut down and the country became the centralized state. The plan of repayment at the European settlers of 480,000 hectares of the earth and resettlement on this earth more than 1 million Africans began to be carried out. On a part of lands, the first state farms and cooperatives are created. After 87-year-old Kenyatta's death in August 1978, Daniel Arap Moi, holding a post of the Minister of Internal Affairs, became the governor of Kenya. In 1982 he officially set the one-party mode, which was actually existing since 1969 in the country. In the country, flashes of the interethnic conflicts were repeatedly observed. In 1963, 1968, Big Scope had the insurgent movement of ethnic Somalis. In 1969 there were bloody wars between Kikuyu and Luo, and in the 1990s the slow interethnic conflict with political overtones took place. However, in general the country was considered in this regard as very stable. In 1969 the only opposition party, the National Union of Kenya, was banned, and the country de facto became one party. In the 1970th years Kenya faced a number of difficulties. Inflation increased, there was an explosive rise in crime, the flow of tourists sharply decreased. On August 1, 1982 the attempt of a coup organized by the former Vice President Odinga, his son, the Prime Minister since 2008, Odinga and junior officers of the Air Force led by H. Ochuk took place. Heads were executed later. In 1991, under internal and external pressure, I agreed to liberalization of the mode and creation of opposition parties. However, he remained in power until the end of 2002, using dissociation of opposition and ethnic dissociation in the country. Since 2003 the economy began to be adjusted gradually. This growth continued until the end of 2007. But many achievements of Kenya of the latest time were called into big question by the new interethnic crisis which began after the presidential elections at the end of 2007. In September 2013 in Nairobi there was a major fire. The state borders on Ethiopia in the north, Somalia in the east, Tanzania in the southwest, Uganda in the west and South Sudan in the northwest. Total length of frontier is 3477 km. With Ethiopia -861 km, with Somalia -682 km, South Sudan -232 km, with Tanzania -769 km and with Uganda -933 km. From the southeast it is washed by waters of the Indian Ocean. In the west, Lake Victoria, length of the coastline of 536 km. The area of Kenya is 582,650 km. From them 11230 km. Surface of the water The maximum extent is 1131 km in the direction from the southeast on the northwest and 1025 km, the northeast on the southwest. Approximately on the center of the country there passes the equator. Kenya is divided into the following geographical areas: the basin of Lake Victoria, the East African Rift Valley and the related mountain area, East Plateaus, Semi-Draughty and Draughty territories in the north and the south, the coast. The biggest Lake Victoria in the western part of the country. The country is rich with various minerals. A subsoil of the country contains reserves of gold, barite, rubies, limestone. In March 2012, the British oil prospecting company Tullow Oil PLC announced detection of reserves of oil in the northwest of the country. Practically all main classes of the animals living in Kenya differ in variety. As of the beginning of the 21st century, 465 species of mammals, 633 bird species, 57 species of butterflies, more than 450 species of reptiles and more than 11 species of amphibia were registered here. At the same time, endemics are, in particular, 39% of mammals and 36% of birds. The well-known African Big Five-5 animals for whom the continent is famous is of special interest. Among them, lion, elephant, rhinoceros, buffalo and leopard. Hunting for them is strictly forbidden. Many animals are under the threat of disappearance. Populations of some types are reduced very in high gear. Kenya, the unitary republic of presidential type. The fundamental law of the state is the constitution adopted in 2010. The main institutes of Kenyan statehood were created in the first years of independent development of the country. At the same time, significant changes were made to a legal basis of their functioning during large-scale liberal and democratic transformations of the end of the 1990s, the beginning of the old years. The main results of reforms became withdrawal of armed forces from political activity, introduction in the country of real multi-party system and direct presidential elections, and increase in the role of legislative authorities. According to Economist Intelligence Unit, the country in 2018 was classified under the Index of Democracy as the hybrid mode. The head of state is the president. Since March 2013, the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. The first Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, was on a post from June 1, 1963 to December 12, 1964. Then the Prime Minister's position in Kenya was cancelled up to 2008. On February 28, 2008, the President of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, and Raila Odinga signed the agreement on formation of the coalition government, in which Odinga became the second Prime Minister in the history of Kenya. In March 2013, in Kenya presidential elections, at which I won a victory in the first round, 50.07%. Uhuru Kenyatta took place. The Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who received more than 40% of votes, was a rival to Uhuru Kenyatta on elections. Legislature of the Republic of Kenya, Unicameral National Assembly. Till 2010. With adoption of the new constitution in 2010, the parliament became two-chamber, consisting of the upper house, the Senate, and lower, National Assembly. Kenya has diplomatic relations with the Russian Federation. are established with the USSR on December 14, 1963. From first years of statehood as the basic principles of foreign policy of Kenya, independence and activity, and also equidistance of confrontational blocs are declared. From the middle of the 1980th years, the major place in a scale of foreign policy priorities of Kenya is taken by regional cooperation. A main objective of the international activity of the government is creation of favorable external conditions for social and economic development of Kenya, her formation as democratic country now, and also assistance to creation of multipolar world order. The territory of Kenya till 2013 was divided into 8 provinces and 71 districts. Since March 2013 it is divided into 47 districts. Population -46 million. Assessment for 2016. Annual gain -3.88%. 2016. Birth rate -35 for 1,000. Fertility -4.4 births only women. Infantile mortality -53 for 1,000. Mortality -9 for 1,000. Nairobi, the capital and the largest city of Kenya with the population more than 3.1 million people. Average life expectancy -58.8 years. 58 years at men, 59 years at women. Contamination: a virus of an immunodeficiency. HIV -6.7%. Assessment for 2003. According to the Book of the Facts of CIA, in Kenya such ethnic groups are presented. Kikuyu -22%, Luhya -14%, Luo -13%, Kalenjin -12%, Kamba -11%, Muslim -6%, a measure of 6%, other Africans -15%, not Africans. Indians, British, Arabs -1%. Official languages: English and Swahili. Local languages are widespread. In English teach at schools and make all government documents. The most part of the population knows Swahili, language of international communication, on the basis of adverbs to able, with a large number of the Arab loans. According to Ethnologue, 69 languages are widespread in Kenya. Literacy: men have 90%, women have 80%. Assessment for 2003. Religions: Christians -82.5%, Muslims -11.1%, native cults -1.7%, other -2.2%, atheists -2.5%. Most of Kenyans Christians, 82.5%. From them 4% consider themselves Protestants, 23.3% Catholics, 1.4% Orthodox Christians. The other Christian organizations, including New Apostolic Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, the Joint Pentecostal Church, make 10.4%. It is remarkable that in Kenya the greatest number of Quakers in the world, about people. Among other groups of Protestants it is necessary to mark out Pentecostals. The Pentecostal Assemblies of God and the Kenyan Assemblies of God. Anglicans, Lutherans, Salvation Armies, Presbyterians, Methodologists, etc. Kenya, the regional center of trade and finance of Africa. DDD per capita calculated at par purchasing power. In 2011, minus $1750. The 151st place in the world. Unemployment rate minus 40%. In 2008. Agriculture. 75% working, 22% of DDD. Tea, coffee, corn, grain, sugar cane, fruit, vegetables. Meat and milk livestock production, pigs and hens also get divorced. The industry. 16% of DDD. In small amounts consumer goods. Batteries, fabrics, soap, cigarettes. Processing of agricultural products are made. Since colonial times, several oil processing enterprises, production of cement, ship repair workshops remained. Services sector minus 62% of DDD. Kenya, the agrarian country with rather high level of development of diversified agriculture, therefore the mining industry is developed poorly and is of little importance in economy and the general structure of economic activity of the country, though the country is rich with minerals. The gross internal product, HIP, in 2006 made $21.2 billion a day. The 604th day per capita. And agriculture gives 28% of DDD, services sector minus 55%, and the industry minus 17%. Mining industry. Generally it is possible to characterize extraction of soda near the Lake Magadi. Fluorite, table salt, gold and rubies. At the initiative of numerous and wealthy European community in Kenya at the end of 1940, the 1958 years development of manufacturing industry began. As a result, in the early 80s, Kenya was mostly industrialized country in East Africa. Primary branches of manufacturing industry: food, textile, printing, sewing, car assembly, oil processing, chemical, mechanical engineering, production of alcoholic drinks, spare parts for cars, cement, paper and hardware. The main industrial centers, Nairobi and Mombasa. The large industrial enterprises are placed in different regions of the country, for example, paper mill Tuvebwi and the oil refinery in Mombasa using import oil. As of 2017, export made $6.17 billion, import minus $17.1 billion. Main export goods: tea, 22%. Flowers, 11%. Oil products, 4.8%. Coffee, 4.3%. And also fruit, vegetables, tobacco and other products of agriculture. Re-export. Main buyers: the USA minus 8. 7%, Uganda minus 8.2%, Pakistan minus 8.2%, the Netherlands minus 7.5%, Great Britain minus 6.7%. Main import goods: oil products, 14%. Palm oil, 3.2%. Cars, 2.9%. Medicines, 2.5%. And not refined sugar, 2.4%. Also, the other industrial output and agricultural raw materials is imported into the country. Main suppliers: China minus 23%, India minus 9.8%, the UAE minus 7.4%, Saudi Arabia minus 6.1%, Japan minus 4.6%, the Republic of South Africa minus 4.5%. The level of consumption of mineral resources in the country low, so, for example, gas isn't used in general, and respectively and not imported. Oil fields it is also not found yet, therefore need of Kenya for oil and oil products is satisfied due to import. In 2006 about 2.2 million tons of oil and about 1.1 million tons of oil products are imported. In the country there is almost no demand for lead in this connection, it also isn't imported. Zinc in the country about 15,000 tons are used a year, that doesn't exceed 0.1% of his world consumption. Also Kenya carries out import of steel semi-products for ensuring operation of rolling mills. So in 2001 their import made 344,000 tons. Generally, one may say, what generally from economically highly developed countries of Kenya imports industrial output, such as oil, machines, cars, higher ferrous and non-ferrous metals, synthetic pitches, medicines and equipment. Their prevalence in the imported products it is possible to arrange as follows. Oil minus 24%, the industrial equipment, farm vehicles and vehicles minus 25%, ferrous metals minus 7%. Export made about 0. 4 million tons of the country of finished oil products. Their visible internal consumption was about 2.9 million tons. From accounting of bunkering of vessels in the international sea and aviation ports. The main exported mineral resources are fluorite, soda, cement, oil products. The main buyers are Great Britain minus 10.2%, the Netherlands minus 9.4%, Uganda minus 9.1%, Tanzania minus 8.9%, the USA minus 6.4%, Pakistan minus 5.7%. Main suppliers. The UAE minus 11.9%, India minus 11.8%, China minus 10.3%, Saudi Arabia minus 8.3%, the Republic of South Africa minus 5.9%, Japan minus 5.3%. The wild nature of Kenya attracts tourists from around the world. Here it is possible to see hunting of a lion for antelopes, family bathing of hippopotamuses and the biggest colony of pink flamingos in the world. The huge territory of Kenya is already more than 15 years national park, therefore any hunting is strictly forbidden here. Fans of extreme rest come to make climbing extinct Mount Kenya. Internet access is a little more than 20% of the population, generally in the large cities. The internet is exposed to censorship. In Kenya there is a range of popular musical forms in addition to a set of types of the folk music based on a variety of more than 40 regional languages. The Kenyan cuisine is exotic and various, it is both traditional African dishes, and the European traditions introduced by colonists. So, the tribes living along the coast give preferences to seafood. To fish, shrimps and the lobsters freed on coals. The high cost of meat forces local population to eat generally the fruit and vegetables a lot of growing in this region. National Parks and Reserves of Kenya. Mount Kenya 5199 meters high. The most known and visited national parks and reserves of Kenya. Nairobi National Park. Masai Mara National Reserve, Lake Nakuru National Park, Amboseli National Park, East Tsavo, Tsavo East National Park. In total in Kenya there are 59 national reserves and parks. Distribution among Kenyans of the European sports began during the British colonization, mainly at the elite level. The authorities of independent Kenya, as a rule, attached great value to development and promoting of sport, implementing the appropriate state programs, in particular, through structures of the Ministry of Youth and Sports. By the 21st century almost all summer sports, both male and female disciplines in a varying degree gained distribution in the country. At the Summer Olympic Games of 2008 the Kenyan team won 14 medals, including 6 gold, 4 silver and 4 bronze. Traditionally Kenyan runners, in particular men, are the most successful. In Kenya the world-famous Safari Rally, which was long entering the calendar of the World Rally Championship and being considered as one of the most difficult both for racers and for causes carried out. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.